style, sell with Sue. It's your move.
Hello, welcome to another episode of No Place Like Home. And today I have on, quite an esteemed colleague, Dr. Laura Hambley. And now, Laura, I actually met you many years ago when I was transitioning work myself, and I did not know which way to go. Even though you want to be a rich and famous actress, you can't just go get that job. You helped me through at that time, but we've stayed in touch. And Laura has just released a book about toxic bosses called I Wish I'd Quit Sooner. How many of us have had that experience? So, welcome to the podcast today, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me, Sue. And I love that we both met through the professional speakers community and that we're both trying to shine a light on all kinds of things.
Exactly. And you're so passionate about telling these stories and helping people. You have a psychology degree. Maybe tell us a little bit of what led you to writing this book or feeling compelled to write about this book and talk about toxicity.
Sure. So I've run a company called Canada Career Counselling for almost 17 years, and we operate across the country with our offices in Calgary, and then Toronto was the second office we opened. And we help thousands of Canadians navigate their careers and pivots and find meaning and purpose and fulfillment, and at the same time deal with the challenges, stress, bad bosses, etc. So the bad bosses part, I had seen more and more of that in my own clients. And then as I talked to my other colleagues, other psychologists, we discovered that it was going on across industries, all these toxic leader situations that people were navigating. So then I started to do research on it. As an adjunct professor of psychology, I always like to dig into topics that are current and important in the world. And this turned out to be one. There wasn't enough research on toxic leadership. So I sought to do the research, and then the book stemmed from that. I Wish I'd Quit Sooner: Practical Strategies for Navigating and Escaping a Toxic Boss.
So good. Listen, just this morning, I had a phone call with someone who is thinking about taking a role with an entrepreneur that's not just in corporate, an entrepreneur who owns his own business. And I did not keep quiet about the reputation that this entrepreneur has, and just to keep her eyes open before she gets in an experience and then ends up coming to you for help, wishing she had quit sooner.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm helping a lot of people through it. They're coming out of the woodwork and they're saying, I'm struggling here. I'm really struggling and I need help to navigate this. So I'm really
Yeah.
honored to be able to do that work and kind of ride the waves with them of how they manage through it. Because it's not easy, but it can be an incredible growth experience once you're on the other side of it and you're healed from it.
Totally agree. And whatever you're experiencing through your work, your career, it affects your home life.
Mhm.
And you and I sat down, had coffee, and you asked me about my story of a toxic boss, which I have spoken about a number of times, but it really was a hard experience and led to us being having to go through bankruptcy because when I quit, I couldn't get another job right away. So, there's all of these ripples that come from the decisions that sometimes we're afraid to make. So, I wonder, what kind of feedback you're getting from the people who are reading your book. And I know you have like a workbook at the back that people can actually work through their situation. So can you tell me a little bit about how it's helping others?
Sure. So the workbook is more, each chapter has workbook elements. They're called Dr. Laura's coaching breaks, and there's checklists, activities, journaling prompts, different things that people can do. And then the book's on Audible. So if they get it on Audible or any audio platform, they get me narrating it, but then they get a 50-page workbook to work through. That's a form fillable PDF to really help navigate. And you might think, gosh, that's a lot. Yeah, well, it's a big decision. It's a big thing that you're going through. And people who are struggling, they often show up either physically in my office in Calgary or remotely. I mean, I even had one from New York City last year, and in tears. So they're usually broken in tears and they don't feel there's any options because they're stuck. They're stuck financially. But the world moves on. There are options. There's 6 options, in fact. And it's just a delight when they finally get to the point where they realize, wait a minute, taking a medical leave isn't the end of the world. In fact, it's what saves me. Or if the toxic boss lets me go, I've had clients send an email, Laura, I've reached chapter 5 in your book. The toxic boss fired me. And I'm okay. And the world will go on. You'll get through it, and you'll get to the other side of it. And what's best is the stories, and I have lots of them, where people end up in a much healthier work environment. And I have a whole chapter on finding a workplace where you never work for a toxic boss, where you see the warning signs of it better. And home life,
Um,
like to me, home life, and I've worked for toxic bosses a couple of times in my career. Home is your haven. Home is your place where recovery needs to happen, your safe place where the toxic boss can't uh, get to you at home. But in the day and age of remote work, they can. And what happened during the pandemic and beyond is the toxic behavior continues, whether you're in the Zoom room or the boardroom.
that's so true. We've had a huge influx to people working from home. So what do you tell people to do, or what kind of advice seems to work for people while they're in whatever's going on outside, whether they're working from home or in the office, and then when they're not working, when it's their time off, obviously they're still going to feel toxicity inside of them. What are some things they can do when they're at home or in a safe place that would help?
Yes. Well, I always say it's filling your own cup, right? So the toxic boss will deplete. If you have a full glass of water every morning when you wake up, which by the way, we don't because we don't sleep well when we have a toxic boss. But if you have a glass of water with some amount of water, by the end of the day, it's empty from the toxic boss. Unless they're on vacation, I've had people tell me when they're on vacation, it's such a reprieve, right? But
Yeah.
every day you're being depleted. So you need to do the things that will fill your cup and at least fill it a little bit. So it's the small things that matter. It's a call with a friend, it's walking the dog around the block, it's going to that yoga class, it's taking 10 minutes to stretch between meetings. It's those little things. And the 3 W's you can do at home or in an office. If you're feeling stressed, really every couple of hours at least do the 3 W's: water, window, and walk. So water is obvious. Window
Yeah.
is look out a window of some sort because seeing the outdoors, nature, if you have any type of nature, even a tree in your yard, that's a huge deal for mental health and grounding. And then the third is walk. So if you can walk around your office floor or walk around the block or your home, that's a big deal. Do a couple of flights of stairs in your home, walk around the different rooms. It just helps ground you.
Do you find that the more toxicity people are taking in, the more they forget to do those things? Because you would think just in your day, naturally people would do those things. So are they getting stifled and not treating themselves with some wellness?
Yes, they just get so stuck in their head because their thoughts are looping and anxious and fear-based, right? The thoughts are looping, and then the central nervous system is on overdrive. So usually the blood pressure can be elevated, the heart rate, the everything is just tight. So you're tense and you're tight, and all of that is happening. So the body's on overdrive and it exhausts you. So by the end of the day, you don't feel like lifting weights or going to a
Hmm.
yoga class. You just don't have the energy. And then you don't sleep well because in the night you're awake thinking of the toxic boss. And the worst
It's
case is, oh my God, if I quit, I'll go bankrupt. But you survive that, right? It's a
yes,
crappy,
that's
horrible
right.
experience, but I bet you're stronger financially now because of that
Yes.
experience.
Totally. You never know where it's going to lead you. I mean, I've always enjoyed speaking or teaching, and it's actually been a great experience to come from where people want to hear about how we got through it. It's, have a lot of resilience to speak about and overcoming. And it's honest and raw. And so I wouldn't have got here if I wouldn't have gotten through that situation. And also, do you know what? It makes me very compassionate with other people.
That's beautiful.
Although I will admit during the time, and I think people must struggle with this, of feeling so pent up and not being able to talk back to your boss or whoever's toxic at work. Sometimes it's not just the boss, and coming home and then releasing that on your children or your family. I mean, that's got to be a little bit of a catch 22, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. So it's called spillover. So imagine that all this negative energy gets brought up from the toxic boss, and then you go home and it just spills over from you to your partner, to your kids. You're
Mhm.
angry, you're short fused, you're sad. So in some of us it can manifest as anxiety. Others it's depression, others it's
Mhm.
anger. It's all this, I call it this negative dark energy that just consumes you. So you need ways to release that energy and
Yes.
let it go. And the breathing makes a big difference too, but it's all those little things that add up.
Yeah, because otherwise, then you're becoming the toxic person in your home. You're being so affected from some toxicity outside of your home, and yet you bring it home and you might not even realize it. Now, that's just making me remember you did say something about there's a difference between toxic boss and just those people that are irritating you, rubbing you the wrong way, but there is a difference.
Sure. So the difference is toxic bosses do ongoing behaviors that harm your engagement, your productivity, and your well-being. And those behaviors can be overt or covert. The overt ones are the more obvious ones, like harassment, bullying, whereas the covert ones are sneaky and manipulative, underhanded, manipulating people and situations, dishonesty, lack of integrity, gaslighting, those sorts of behaviors that are more kind of clandestine, but equally as damaging as the more outward. The thing with toxic bosses is they should have never been put into a people leadership role. And that's something I'm
Mm,
working on. I'm working on with organizational leadership and HR is we got to get to the bottom of that. But
mm.
once they're in the role, the only way is that they need to either be removed from the role or you need to leave or move on to a different position. Something needs to shift. Whereas a difficult boss, I call them, they're frustrating, annoying, challenging, but they won't harm you and they don't have the intention to harm. And they can get better. They can become better bosses.
So at home, have some toxic people or a toxic situation. Maybe you can just talk about that for a minute. Like when is it a line when you need to get out of uh, an intimate relationship versus when is it just really difficult, but you can work together and maybe, move into another chapter of your relationship.
Well, I think there's a lot of similarities between abusive romantic relationships and abusive bosses because they make us feel trapped and it's often financially trapped. But I would always say if your physical and or mental health are being harmed, if your confidence is being eroded, then it's time to go.
Mm.
It's it's depleting you as a human being. If it's annoying, if it's frustrating, it can be worked on, it can be improved, whether that's through managing your boss, managing the relationship with your boss. And I had a whole podcast episode on that with an author of a book around how you manage up, how you work with different difficult bosses, like someone who micromanages or whatever. There's strategies for that. And there's strategies for difficult relationships. There's so many great marriage and relationship therapists out there that can help. But if it's the point that it's damaging you, your psyche, your well-being, and your confidence, then it's time to figure out a way to transition out.
Yeah, sometimes it'll take more than just a bubble bath and some essential oils. But
It's-
sometimes that's a really good, no matter if you own, you rent, you're in a condo or you're in a house, you can still make a beautiful environment that speaks to your own soul so you can lift and build yourself up. Do you find that that helps people get through these hard times?
Bingo, absolutely. And I'm a huge fan of grounding, meditation, wellness, journaling type practice and having an area of your home for that. And if you live in a
Hmm.
condo, that's fine. You can have a certain corner where you're set up for that. And I have a home office. It used to be one of our kids' bedrooms, and then it turned into a home office. And it's lovely. I have a chair for meditation, for journaling. I have the oils, like you said, but I also have the things that ground me. And a heated
Hmm.
blanket, even, because that has a bay window. That's a cold, chilly room. So I have a heater, heated blanket, all my things. And I have plants. I mean, I used to think plants were a pain in the butt. I couldn't take care of them. They always died and they attract bugs. But actually, the power of nature in your well-being is huge. I've learned that through my podcasting career, and I have plants in the office and I water those things and I say good morning to them, and they are good plants. They are important parts
Yes.
of the home.
Yes, and you've got to value yourself enough to take care of yourself and to give yourself what you need. Give yourself the love that will feed your own soul so that you can take on the world, no matter what it is or who it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're all souls. We got to remind people that we're actually all connected and there is a higher purpose.
Yeah, totally agree. And I am hearing this kind of conversation everywhere in career and in social circles. People are acknowledging, yeah, it is a hard time, and they're looking inward, and everyone's on their journey. So be on your
Hmm.
journey. I heard the story of how you came into this world, and you were the baby of many children. And maybe you can just share a little bit about your home and growing up, which maybe kind of led to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So it was Varsity Village in Calgary, and
Yes.
it was a six-bedroom house because my parents had six kids. They had five in a row, and then they had me as a oops when mom was 41 at
Wow.
Foothills Hospital, where I was born, which I can actually see from my office right now in Eau Claire area. And my son was born there 18 years ago today, so that's a whole
Oh,
interesting.
amazing.
Yeah, my baby Matthew. And actually, I have a daughter too who's younger than Matthew, but he's my baby boy, Matthew, who's a 6 foot. Anyways, long story short, so fa my father was yelled at the Foothills Hospital by a doctor who said, "Why would you get her pregnant? She's 41." Like that is
Ooh,
so irresponsible of you.
wow.
Look at how times
Wow.
have changed, hey? But by then, my mom's mental health it really always had been a struggle for her. And I think it got worse over time. And I really believe postpartum depressions can really hit hard. They hit hard for me, and I know they hit hard for my mother. And by the time she had me, she had a lot of anxiety and a lot of ups and downs. I mean, she was never diagnosed bipolar, but I would probably put that label on it. I'd put anxiety disorder, and the way that she treated her anxiety, because therapy wasn't mainstream back then, and neither were
Mm.
antidepressants and medications. So she treated it with extreme religion because it gave her a sense of control and it gave her a sense of stability to have that routine. And if you think of repetitious prayer, it does calm down the mind. And I can recite all those prayers because I was put into that pew, more often than not, like more than once a week. But what I didn't like about it was the fear of hell and purgatory and the guilt and just the dark side of it all. I thought that that wasn't helpful. And I've had to grow out of that guilt, that fear.
And so in your home, did you have windows of joy and then windows of difficulty and maybe
Yeah.
some windows of toxicity? And, how did you cope with that living inside that
I wouldn't
bubble?
say it was abusive, or I wouldn't use the word toxic at all. I would say definitely periods of instability, uncertainty, some fear that oh my gosh, is my mom left, like she took off to Banff, and is she coming back, right? And when you're younger, you don't know
Mm,
and it's really destabilizing. So when my mom reached a certain point, she would take off, and then that was tough. My father was much more steady, much more stable, but it took a toll on his well-being and his health as well. I think every home, every family has their issues. What I'm saying is probably, people can relate to, right? The ups, downs, and mother and father fighting. It's
and
nothing
it's so
new,
great
but
that therapy is more mainstream. It's covered in a lot of health
Mhm.
plans, through work. You can go and talk it out. You can talk to someone and see, do you need some medication? Do you need
Yes.
some,
And
what can people, get in therapy?
And my dad, he followed his career around. He was a chemical engineer and an inventor of water filtration systems and technology to help water in cities and towns. And he moved around. So they moved, I think, 6 or 7 times while she had like the 5 little kids. So you can imagine that you lose your social network in each city, Montreal, Ontario, Regina, Edmonton, Calgary, etc. They finally settled here in the late 60s, early 70s, and that's where they had me. But it was unstable until then. Like the movement, I really feel for my mom actually. And she lost her mother young, so she didn't have a mother. And then she just
Hmm.
kind of turned to the organized religion for an outlet and security. But I had 5 older siblings. They all moved out as I was growing up, right? Because they were 12 to 19 years
Sure.
older. But we kept this house in Varsity, and it was a great community to grow up in. Really good. Like you roam the neighborhood and lots of big trees, even at that time, climbing trees, doing things that adventure. We knew that community inside out. Every like little
Yes.
wooded area, the neighbors that were nasty, cutting through yards, all of it. It was a good area.
I think you're right. Everyone can relate and they have their own stories of the good times and the hard times, and everyone has their own experiences that help them develop into who they are. When we talk of thinking about having a place that's no place like our home, what would you say would be the top recommendations that you could have, having heard the stories of very many people who have had to deal with hard things? Is there a place inside of them or inside of their home that can really help take the pressure off and just center them and get them back to feeling confident and love?
Yes, I go back to windows and natural light is super important. Having a place for where you have a quiet space. So you may have a busy household like my mom did, mom and dad, but you need a quiet place to retreat and to have that time. And it may be listening to music, it may be
Hmm.
reading or writing or whatever it is that you do, or practicing yoga, but not a noisy spot where there's like kids and dogs running around, and your space and your haven. I think it's important for mental health. Clutter isn't good. Cl Too much clutter just it just
Yes.
doesn't ground you. It's just because you're always losing things and looking for things. And I'm a big fan of decluttering. We're going to do that. Our utility rooms become a mess. And my husband said, "Why are you saving things from your doctorate from 20 years ago? Binders of stuff." He's like, "You're going to get rid of that." And I will, right? Because I think it's just clutter. And
Hmm.
it's just in your
Hmm.
space. You need to get rid of all that stuff and just stuff that I'm very sentimental. So, oh, this thing, oh, this mug from Oktoberfest in 1994, or, really say thank you. Oktoberfest in 1994 was fun. We got hammered. We had a great time. Thank you, mug. Goodbye. Right? So just say goodbye.
Yes.
Spread it back to the universe. Maybe someone who needs it could have it, or it's the garbage, but it's okay to part with physical things because what matters is not the physical, it's the relationships. You could have the most beautiful home and toxic relationships feel empty and alone. in the most beautiful mansion in Calgary. You can have the smallest little 2-bedroom apartment and have so much joy, gratitude, and health and well-being in that small apartment. So
That's so true. How insightful. I once had a guest on who was a professional organizer, and she said clutter is just unmade decisions sitting there waiting for
beautiful.
someone to decide. Yeah, and it always did stick with me. And thank you for reminding us all to find our own ways to recharge. And, we don't always have to be on, full volume. Sometimes we need to take care of ourselves and be quiet. And it's okay. Hey, have a look around your house. Where's your special space? And what do you like to do in it? It's your sanctuary. Where do you make your sanctuary? Yeah. What is the name of your podcast, Dr. Laura?
It's called Where Work Meets Life. Yeah.
I will put a link to that in my show notes. And thank you so much for just popping on here. I know you're busy and you've got appointments to get to. I really wanted everyone, my audience, especially those folks here in Calgary, but I guess if you're in Toronto, well, you're probably virtual, so all across Canada, to know that there is a resource out there. Dr. Laura Hambley, she's done so much research about toxic bosses, written a great book on it if you are experiencing that, but also is just here to help in our life decisions, our career decisions. Any parting words that you'd like to share?
Just that Canada Career Counselling is registered psychologists, so people can run it through their benefits and insurance plans to get help with their career and their work stress and their boss and whatever else. So people don't realize that. They don't connect those dots usually.
Yes, thank you so much to remind us about that. People, get the help you need so that you can really enjoy the space you're in. Number one, your own mind. Number two, the physical space. Thanks for being with us here today, Dr. Laura.
My pleasure, Sue. Thanks for all you do to find people homes that fit for their lifestyles and being a beautiful speaker and sharer of wisdom.
Oh, thank you so much. I love what I do.